Yeah, so the idea with today's presentation is to go through some basics of website tracking with ActiveDEMAND. ActiveDEMAND's got some pretty powerful website tracking features that kind of work hand in hand with Google Analytics and some of the other analytics packages out there, but offer some pretty unique bits to it. So today we'll kind of go through just a little bit of the theory. I'm kind of a practical guy, so I like the practical, like meat and potatoes stuff, but the theory is important to kind of show the why. We'll go through deploying the tracking code, how you do that, and then we'll kind of go through what you get from getting that ActiveDEMAND tracking into your website. So first, that little bit of theory. In general, marketing automation covers a lot of inputs and outputs. It's kind of like a central place to track and act on prospect signals. Now you get that with Google Analytics, but it's anonymous. So taking action on prospect signals is a little bit harder. And Google Analytics doesn't have like there's no way to say like, oh, if a person goes to this page and then does this, then I want them to be emailed or I want them to see this. There's not really a way of handily doing that. There's remarketing, but not a whole heck of a lot of other actions you can take on individual de-anonymized prospect signals. So this is really where the power of a marketing automation platform comes into play, is in this ability to gather a lot of inputs and take action on those inputs with a lot of different outputs. Some examples of what you could do. I mean, if you can see all the user signals coming in and you can take action with all the marketing tools on the way out, you can do things like, oh, if a user booked a meeting with you, okay, well, if they booked a meeting, they're at this place of the buyer journey. That means I want, if they come back to the website, I want them to see case studies. So they'll still see whatever content on the page that they want to, but I want a little section on the side there to push them to case studies, because I know for someone in the consideration phase when they're booking that meeting, I want them to see other happy customers. This is something that's pretty advanced. Maybe you wouldn't want to put those case studies on that page normally, but if you knew that they had a meeting with you, it's an extra way to help move that prospect down the buyer's funnel or buyer journey. You could add them to a Facebook remarketing campaign if they call in for a quote. So this is something that's pretty advanced. If someone picks up the phone and calls you, and you detect them saying something like quote on the phone, with, let's say you're using the ActiveDEMAND call recording, then we can add them to a Facebook remarketing campaign and try to push that over the edge. And unlike a lot of remarketing you see out there, we can pull them out of that campaign if they buy, which is, I'm sure, something that everyone out there has experienced. It's kind of annoying when you get those Facebook or Google ads for something that you've already bought. And the nice thing is with ActiveDEMAND, because we integrate with so many different CRMs and e-commerce engines, we can see when they buy. So we can more reliably pull them out of that campaign. We could change a newsletter to pitch parts and service if a customer or contact went to the parts and service landing page. So again, this is just talking about how we can take action on input signals with different outputs or making things dynamic, so we personalize what we're sending to the prospect. Or a really basic example here would be, we could change a lead score based on signals. So we could, rather than oh, they did this, therefore they are a lead, I could say, oh, they did this kind of important thing, but then they also did this and this and this and this. And I'm looking at this whole picture, I think this person's a lead, and I determine that based on a lead score. So that's possible to do in ActiveDEMAND as well, and it's something that some companies do to identify leads that maybe their marketing would have missed. So let's talk about how we deploy this kind of tracking on a website. The website bit is important because a website is commonly like our centerpiece of marketing. This is where we send a lot of our prospects, so it has to have good tracking on it. When we put the ActiveDEMAND tracking script on a website, that allows us to track web page visits for each contact. Importantly, de-anonymized. Like, yeah, you can track website visits for each contact with Google Analytics or heck, even Hotjar will track it. But those are all anonymized, whereas ours is not. We can track all of what pages each different contact went to and that kind of a thing. It also enables ActiveDEMAND pop-ups, dynamic content forms. So it's kind of our baseline bit of tech that we need on a website to do some of the cooler stuff. So we're going to go through 3 ways of deploying the code. One is using the WordPress plugin. The second is using Tag Manager, and then the third is just a plain old tracking script. The first one, the WordPress plugin, this is really the way that we'd recommend. If you have WordPress, and for several different reasons. One, it's easy. There's no coding required. You have to know a little bit about website technology, but there's not really any coding in there. You can do things inside WordPress without code, like add forms, pop-ups, or dynamic content. You can add them to pages, posts, all sorts of different places. That makes it very easy. As well, there's something special that we do with WordPress. We can enable password access to specific WordPress pages. So if you have like a membership area, or if you want only some people to get access to a certain page or pages, that you can do that kind of thing. And as well, there's some performance optimization options in there that allow you to change how it works. So this is an example show of what it looks like inside WordPress. So you've got a couple different options there. You can see we've got content on the middle tab. The content tab will show you what forms and dynamic content and all that kind of stuff you could possibly use. And then access control is that password protected area. I've got my API key like blurred out here because I don't want you guys using my API key. But this is where you would put that in to enable this integration. The API key. Inside ActiveDEMAND, you go to your account settings, and then you go down to account setup, and it'll be right in the middle there. There's our API key just underneath the tracking script. We don't need the script if we're doing the plugin. We can just use that API key. Now, what if we want to use one of the other methods? Well, okay, let's say we're using Tag Manager. If we're using Tag Manager, well, there's a script right there, just above us there. So we would take that script and we would use Tag Manager. So some of the advantages of using Google Tag Manager, it's super fast to deploy. I don't know if, like a lot of agencies are starting to use Google Tag Manager with more of their customers. There's not really any coding. There's code. I just showed you a script code, but we're just copying and pasting. We're not doing anything crazy. We're not coding or anything like that. We're just copy and pasting stuff. And Tag Manager is like really configurable. There's a lot of things you can do in terms of like tag firing sequences. If you want to use Google Analytics and Google Analytics 4 and Hotjar and a whole bunch of other technologies, I would really recommend using Tag Manager because it makes it easy to figure out which pages you want to launch those tags. The performance of Tag Manager is pretty good. So all of these are positives for using Google Tag Manager. And to make a tag inside Tag Manager, all you do is go to Custom HTML. You take that script bit that we just showed you, you dump it in the HTML area on there. You set your triggering. I'd recommend just triggering on all pages, and that's it. That's the Tag Manager configuration. It's pretty easy. Oh, don't forget to hit publish. Google Tag Manager has this like really great versioning system built in, but if you just like put in a tag and save it, it's not live. It's not live until you hit that publish button. And then finally, the last way to get the tracking script onto your website is just to use the code. So take that script code and then add it in. Now, with some website platforms, there's going to be maybe your theme has a spot for using tracking code. That's a very easy way of copying and pasting where you don't have to know so much about code. Maybe there's a header template that you can use. Okay, now we're in code. Well, it's HTML code, but it's still code. So now we have to find the correct spot to put it in. And the correct spot to put the tracking script in is just before the /head of the website. I would strongly recommend you put this in a template file of some kind if you go this route. Okay, we've got the tracking code in. Now, what do I actually get from putting that in? Well, there's a whole bunch of things that will automatically happen just by putting that tracking script in. Number one, de-anonymized website visits. So if a contact comes to the website and then they leave and then they come back and then they convert, we'll track that previous visit, we'll track the current visit, we'll get to see what pages they went to, what dynamic content they viewed, all that good stuff is going to be saved to their activity timeline on the contact. One thing we do for Google Ads is we can save the GCL ID for later. So if you're a Google Ads nerd, what that means is that we can send that conversion back to Google Ads. There's a little bit of configuration we'll need to get the conversion back to it, but at least we've got that bit. We can automatically track live chats from Olark, Crisp, and SiteStaff. So these are just some different live chat providers. We use Crisp at ActiveDEMAND. That's if you ever engage with support. That's the tech that you're using to talk with them with. And the cool thing about this, what if someone comes to the website and they look at all this stuff and they're like, yep, okay, I think I want to buy, but I just have a couple of questions. Sometimes they pick up the phone and the call. Sometimes they go on live chat. And what that means is that that live chat is actually a lead. So by tracking the live chat and getting that conversation, that chat into ActiveDEMAND, makes it easier to identify leads and pop those through to sales. So I really like that, and it requires absolutely no additional configuration on our end. We can add the Facebook pixel on page for you, so just saves a little bit of time on deployment. We can add ad roll to the page for you, and as well we can automatically launch pop-ups. So that's all without any additional code. There are some things you're going to need to do extra if you want to do more. One of those things, DNI. So DNI is dynamic number insertion. This is a kind of call tracking that you can use on your website to see, to track the source and all the stuff about who is making the phone ring and why the phone's ringing. If you have a company where some of your leads come in through the phone, I would strongly recommend you set up DNI, because you are likely missing a big part of the picture as to which marketing is working if you don't see what's making the phone ring. So the general idea here is, and this can be done just with that script. That script can dynamically replace these phone numbers. So let's say that phone number on the right is the regular number we have on our website. The script will automatically swap in one of the DNI phone numbers with that to that phone number, so that the customer sees the 888 number. When the customer calls that number, we know, I know who that is. That person is on the website right now. They went to these pages and they came in through a Google ad or a Facebook ad or through an Instagram campaign or whatever. So we get that source, we get the website visit, and we attach it to the phone call. Super powerful. You need to be doing this if you're doing if you generate any reasonable amount of calls with your marketing. You've got to be tracking this to figure out what's happening and what marketing's working. And it's super easy to set up. Once you have that tracking code in, you can just pop onto ActiveDEMAND, set up a DNI pool, replace the phone number, and it's off to the races. It can be done in 5-10 minutes maybe. Now, let's talk about some of the other things you'll need additional work and what that additional work is if you want them tracked. Virtual form submits. Virtual form submits, let's say you already have a website. There's already forms on it. You don't want to put ActiveDEMAND forms on it because it's fast, or because maybe it's a client of yours and they're not paying you a heck of a lot. So you just want the basics. There is something we can do called a virtual form submit, where we can see a form happening and we can track it inside ActiveDEMAND. There's a little bit of extra code. If you go to the engage.activedemand.com support section, you can find that bit of code that you need for the virtual form submits. It's, again, pretty quick, especially if you're using Google Tag Manager. Dynamic content blocks or images, you need to use the code where you want those things to launch. Now, if you're in WordPress, you don't need the code. You can just use the short code. If you're on another CMS, then you can use the code of the dynamic block or image or whatever to pop into the page that you want it to show in. You would need that anyways, because you need to tell the website where you want that thing to launch. And then there's some additional stuff that you'll need to do around Google Ads and Facebook Ads to get that info into ActiveDEMAND, primarily value track parameters. There's an article on the again, support area that talks about that. GA tracking on ActiveDEMAND landing pages. There's a checkbox. You just check the checkbox and then you're done. And then forms or appointment scheduling content. Yeah, you'll need to put some code in to tell the website where you want it as well. So those all need just a little bit of extra work, but and you'll need to go onto the support area to find where those are. So some additional reading. So again, this presentation is primarily just on the website tracking. But if you wanted to take a look at some of the other ones that we have, the first two I have here, tracking script for your website. That's if you're, pardon me, just doing the tracking script or using Tag Manager. The last three are more advanced ones that I'd encourage you to check out. Pardon me. Analytics Basics goes through actually analyzing what's happening with the data that's coming in, and how you can use ActiveDEMAND and Google Analytics and some of the other platforms out there. Maximizing your Facebook integration, that one talks about everything you can do with Facebook and ActiveDEMAND. So if you're looking to set up a tracking code or get Facebook lead ads or something like that inside ActiveDEMAND, that video has it all. And then finally, ActiveDEMAND Basics. If you haven't seen it, it's just a very quick overview of the platform and how it operates. So that's a great place to start if you're just getting started.